It all began on a Tuesday morning during a live segment on Good Morning America. First Lady Jill Biden had sat down for what was expected to be a relatively routine interview about education policy and the upcoming White House initiatives for military families. But midway through the discussion, things took an unexpected turn. When asked about the role of First Ladies in shaping national values, Jill Biden leaned back slightly and smiled, a smile some viewers later described as calculated. "Well," she said, "I think America appreciates a First Lady who can speak fluently, work full-time, and isn't just decorating Christmas trees." The host blinked, hesitating. The audience was silent. And just like that, the room shifted. The jab was subtle, but unmistakable. Millions watching at home instantly knew who she meant. Within minutes, social media exploded. The hashtag Melania response began trending on X, formerly Twitter, before the segment had even ended. But Melania Trump? She hadn't said a word. Not yet. As cable news anchors scrambled to analyze the remark, Melania Trump remained completely silent. No press release. No Instagram post. No Truth Social reaction from her husband. Just radio silence. But behind the scenes, things were stirring. Sources close to the former First Lady said she had seen the clip within the hour. One aide described her demeanor as icy calm, while another told Fox News, "She doesn't react fast, she reacts precise." For the rest of the day, journalists staked out Mar-a-Lago, hoping for a glimpse or a comment. But Melania stayed out of sight. Conservative commentators began defending her immediately, calling Jill Biden's words classless and petty. Others speculated that Melania wouldn't respond at all. They didn't know her well enough. By Thursday morning, the silence broke, not with a statement, but with an invitation. Melania Trump had agreed to appear live on national television that evening. One network. One host. One chair. She was ready. That evening, the nation tuned in. Melania Trump appeared on the Sean Carlson Hour, a primetime program known for its blunt interviews and massive audience. The former First Lady walked onto the set wearing a navy blue suit, her posture graceful, expression unreadable. The live audience gave her a respectful, thunderous welcome. Sean Carlson wasted no time. "Mrs. Trump, I want to give you the floor. You've seen what Jill Biden said. America's watching. What's your response?" Melania didn't blink. She waited a beat. Then, in her unmistakable accent, calm and deliberate, she spoke, "I am proud of every Christmas tree I ever decorated. I did it with care, love, and for the children of this country. I speak 5 languages. I didn't need to work full-time for attention, I served with dignity." The room went quiet. Then she leaned slightly forward, voice even colder. "Some women measure their worth by their job title. Others, by their values. I'll let the American people decide which matters more." Carlson sat back, stunned. Within seconds, the clip was already being clipped and replayed across the internet. Melania hadn't just responded. She had dropped the mic. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, Melania Trump's words were everywhere. Major headlines flooded the internet. Melania Trump silences Jill Biden with one line heard around the country, "I speak 5 languages." Melania's elegant burn breaks the internet. First Lady versus former First Lady. The gloves are off. Even media outlets that usually kept their distance from political drama couldn't ignore what had just happened. CNN ran a special panel. MSNBC brought in body language experts. Fox News replayed the clip on a loop for nearly 20 minutes. And social media? It was in meltdown. TikTok creators reenacted Melania's line. X was trending with hashtag #DignitySpeaks and hashtag #MelaniaMicDrop. Even apolitical celebrities began posting cryptic emojis, a Christmas tree, a book, a fire symbol, signaling their takes without saying a word. Meanwhile, at the White House, Press Secretary Emma Lockhart looked visibly flustered during the daily briefing. When asked if the First Lady stood by her comments, Lockhart offered a rehearsed but unconvincing response. The First Lady was speaking broadly about her values. There was no intent to insult anyone personally. But America wasn't buying it. The stage was set for a deeper divide, and Melania, without shouting, had taken command of the room. The backlash hit the White House faster than expected. By Friday morning, senior advisors to the First Lady were in full crisis mode. Anonymous leaks suggested internal disagreements, some urging Jill to issue an apology, others insisting they ride the wave and frame her original remarks as misinterpreted. But public sentiment was shifting, and fast. Polling data released that afternoon by Westbrook Strategies showed that Melania Trump's favorability among independents had jumped 12 points overnight. Even moderate Democrats were uneasy. One viral comment summed it up: "You don't have to like Melania, but she carried herself like a First Lady." Jill took a cheap shot, and got professionally buried. Still, Jill Biden remained quiet. No televised statement. No Instagram post. Just carefully selected photo ops with schoolchildren and service members, none of which could drown out the growing media frenzy. Meanwhile, conservative commentators began calling for Jill to publicly apologize. She insulted a First Lady who never attacked her, one host argued. Melania took the high road and still delivered a world-class response. It wasn't just about pride anymore, it was about perception. And in the public eye, Jill looked rattled. And Melania? She looked presidential. Just when the dust seemed ready to settle, an unexpected figure stepped into the spotlight, someone who hadn't spoken about either woman publicly in over a year. Michelle Obama. During a scheduled appearance at a leadership summit in Chicago, a journalist asked the former First Lady how she felt about the escalating tension between Jill Biden and Melania Trump. The room hushed. Everyone knew Michelle rarely commented on political spats, especially between First Ladies. She paused, then answered with measured precision, "I've always believed that when women take shots at one another in public, everyone loses. But when a woman stands with quiet strength, dignity, and class, everyone notices. That's all I'll say." The crowd murmured. While she didn't name names, the message was clear to millions watching online. The internet lit up again. Some took her comment as a subtle nod of respect toward Melania. Others called it a call for unity. But one thing was undeniable: Michelle Obama's brief statement had added fuel to the already raging fire. Back at the White House, the silence from Jill's team continued. And in Florida, Melania was spotted visiting a children's hospital, in a quiet blue dress, carrying books for the kids. The media frenzy didn't stop her. If anything, it made her quieter, and somehow, louder. Inside the East Wing of the White House, pressure was building. Jill Biden's senior communications advisor, Dana Keene, paced the carpet, flanked by two interns holding drafts of a potential statement. Aides debated every word. Should it include an apology? Should it be vague? Should it even be released at all? The problem wasn't just the backlash. It was the tone Melania had set. She hadn't fought fire with fire. She'd fought it with elegance, and it had worked. Leaked emails later revealed that some members of Jill's staff were worried the situation was unwinnable. One message read, "We made a tactical mistake." Melania's silence, then surgical response, turned her into a symbol. Jill looks like the aggressor, not the First Lady. Still, Jill Biden held her ground. That weekend, during a speech at a private educators event in Philadelphia, she addressed the matter, indirectly. Some people think being quiet is the same as being kind. But silence doesn't raise children. Silence doesn't run classrooms. And silence certainly doesn't build nations. It was meant to be empowering. But to millions online, it sounded defensive. And the headlines wrote themselves: Jill fires back, but did it backfire again? First Lady digs deeper, while Melania stays silent. The White House wanted the story to disappear. But Melania didn't need to speak again. America was still talking for her. By Monday, the narrative had completely flipped. Daytime talk shows, usually hesitant to praise Melania Trump, were suddenly filled with soft commentary about her composed demeanor and understated strength. Even The View, known for its progressive tone, had split opinions. Sunny Hostin commented, "You don't have to agree with her politics to admit, Melania handled that better than most people would have." Meanwhile, conservative influencers launched an entire digital campaign titled #GraceUnderFire, featuring clips of Melania's televised reply paired with quotes about dignity, motherhood, and public service. One clip had over 30 million views in 24 hours. Online merchandise stores jumped in too. T-shirts with the phrase, "I speak 5 languages," began selling out. But what shocked many even more was a sudden uptick in Melania being invited to women's leadership events, charity conferences, and even podcasts, from both sides of the aisle. Some of these invites had previously been blocked or quietly cancelled during her husband's presidency. Now, she was seen differently. Not just as a former First Lady, but as a symbol of how silence, when chosen wisely, can speak volumes. In less than a week, Melania Trump had reshaped her public image, without anger, without name-calling. Just one sentence. And it left America speechless. As Melania's rise in public favor surged, quiet frustrations began simmering within the Democratic Party, and not just among staffers. Several senior strategists began voicing concern that Jill Biden's offhand comment had unintentionally elevated the former First Lady. A memo circulated among key donors warned, "Melania Trump has become an accidental icon of restraint, and we handed her the stage." In private meetings, Democratic aides debated damage control options. Should Jill go on a friendly talk show and clarify her words? Should another surrogate speak out and redirect the conversation back to policy? But with every move, they risked making the story bigger, or worse, looking petty in contrast to Melania's grace. Even a few progressive columnists turned on the First Lady's team, criticizing the original remark as tone-deaf elitism. Meanwhile, Republicans seized the moment. Senators, House members, and high-profile conservative voices began quoting Melania in speeches and tweets. Some even hinted at her being a future keynote speaker at major conservative events, or playing a larger role in the upcoming election cycle. Melania, of course, said nothing. She didn't need to. Her reply was still echoing through the halls of power. And for the first time in a long time, some in Washington were asking a question no one expected: was Melania Trump just underestimated, again? By midweek, the media buzz was still burning, but Melania Trump made one final move that sealed the moment in history. Without fanfare, she released a short, pre-recorded video message on her official platform. The setting was serene, a modest garden, soft sunlight and no music. Dressed in a simple white blouse, she looked directly into the camera. Her tone was calm, deliberate. In public life, words matter. So does grace. I believe women can be strong without being loud. And that legacy is built not by attacking others, but by choosing silence when it's easy to shout, and speaking when it matters most. She paused, then added, "I thank those who see past the noise. Who value substance over spite." The video lasted only 53 seconds. And it went viral in under 5 minutes. Mainstream networks picked it up instantly. Cable news hosts who had long criticized her were now calling the message the most poised public response we've seen from a political spouse in years. Commentators across the spectrum acknowledged one thing: Melania hadn't just defended herself. She'd redefined her public identity, on her own terms. And for Jill Biden, who remained noticeably absent from any further interviews, the silence became louder than any official statement. America had watched 2 First Ladies. Only one had left the nation speechless. The Melania moment didn't just dominate headlines, it reshaped political conversations behind closed doors. At a private DNC strategy session in D.C., one advisor reportedly said, "We went in trying to dismiss her. Now we're praying she doesn't headline a rally." Campaign operatives from both parties began reassessing how they talked about political spouses. The lesson was clear: even a soft-spoken figure could command the room, and shift national sentiment, if underestimated. Melania's approval rating among suburban women had quietly ticked upward. Focus groups showed something even more surprising: young, apolitical women were citing her video as a masterclass in self-control. TikTok influencers started calling it First Lady energy. And then came the final twist. Melania Trump was invited to deliver a keynote at an upcoming Women in Leadership Forum, a bipartisan event in New York, previously dominated by corporate executives and former diplomats. The committee didn't expect her to say yes. But she did. With one request: no red carpet. No branding. Just a microphone. Meanwhile, Jill Biden's press team continued to decline interview requests, hoping to let the moment fade. But for much of America, it already felt decided. This wasn't just a media spat. It was a cultural moment, and Melania Trump, once mocked for her accent and silence, had walked out of it not just intact, but elevated. The forum in New York was packed. Cameras rolled, journalists whispered, and every seat in the auditorium was filled before Melania Trump even stepped on stage. She didn't bring an entourage. No flashy gown. Just a sleek black dress, minimal jewelry, and that signature calm. When she took the podium, the room quieted instantly. She began by thanking the women in attendance: CEOs, veterans, mothers, students. Then she paused. "I have been many things in my life," she said: "an immigrant, a model, a mother, a first lady. But the most important title I carry is human being." A ripple of applause followed. She spoke for just under 10 minutes. No political jabs. No self-praise. Instead, she spoke about composure, about respecting differences, and about using silence as a form of strength, not weakness. She ended with this: "We live in a loud time. But being loud does not mean you are right. Let your words matter when you speak. And when you don't, let your presence speak louder." The standing ovation was instant and unanimous. Across the country, commentators scrambled to define what had just happened. Some called it a rebranding, others a political comeback without a campaign. But one outlet said it best: Melania Trump just turned one insult into a movement. Back in Washington, Jill Biden kept to her schedule, quieter than ever. And in the storybooks of modern political history, a new chapter was written. Not with fury. Not with spin. But with a sentence, a stare, and a silence America would never forget. Weeks later, the political buzz had moved on, but the impact of Melania Trump's quiet stand hadn't faded. Universities held panels on composure in public life, citing her televised response as a modern case study in controlled influence. Leadership coaches began referencing her in seminars. Even Fortune 500 companies sent out internal memos about the Melania effect, the idea that restraint, when timed correctly, could be more powerful than confrontation. Meanwhile, publishers began calling. 3 major houses were now courting Melania for a memoir, not a political tell-all, but a book focused on grace, perception, and legacy. Rumors swirled that the title under consideration was simply Silence. Back in Florida, Melania remained mostly off-camera. She continued her work quietly, visiting children's hospitals, working with anti-cyberbullying groups, and attending private events by invitation only. When asked by a young student during one appearance what gave her the strength to speak up when she did, Melania reportedly smiled softly and replied, "Because someone needed to remind them what class still looks like." And with that, she walked off. No need for applause. No headlines needed. Just quiet footsteps echoing louder than anyone had expected. Legacy sealed. Mic dropped, forever. Months later, political analysts were still unpacking the moment that had reshaped America's view of 2 first ladies. Behind the scenes, whispers began emerging that the RNC was considering giving Melania a larger platform at the upcoming convention, not just as a symbolic figure, but as a speaker positioned to appeal to independents and suburban women. Meanwhile, First Lady Jill Biden had retreated into safer territory: education town halls, policy events, and scripted interviews. Her approval ratings had stabilized, but the wound remained visible. The phrase, "just decorating Christmas trees," had become a cautionary tale in D.C., a reminder that one line, carelessly delivered, could alter public perception overnight. And yet, Melania never gloated. She didn't need to. The way she had handled the insult, with elegance, poise, and just enough bite, had earned her something rare in American politics: respect across party lines. In an age of outrage, she had chosen dignity. In a time of noise, she had chosen silence, and when she did speak, she didn't just clap back. She rewrote the rules. And in homes across the country, mothers, daughters, and young women remembered one simple moment: a woman insulted on national television, who stood up not by raising her voice, but by commanding the room without ever needing to shout. As the political cycle marched on, campaign ads rolled out, debates flared, and partisan lines deepened. But one moment still lingered in the national memory: a reminder that not all power needs to shout to be heard. In interviews months later, political historians described Melania Trump's response as a defining moment in modern First Lady history. Not because it was dramatic, but because it wasn't. She had done what few expected. She resisted the temptation to retaliate with venom. Instead, she used intelligence, restraint, and precision, and in doing so, reframed what strength can look like on the national stage. For Jill Biden, the misstep was a lesson in political fragility: that even a well-educated, well-intentioned comment, if misjudged, can open doors for your opponent. Her team quietly adjusted tone, avoided further shade, and took the long route to rebuild trust. But for Melania Trump, that brief chapter became something larger. Not a redemption arc. Not a revenge tour. But a moment that revealed what she had been all along: poised, prepared, and underestimated. She didn't ask for attention. She earned it. And as one New York Times columnist finally admitted in a headline that stunned many, "We thought she was just quiet, turns out, she was listening."